23 lanes. That is how wide one stretch of highway in Texas grew, 23 lanes laid side by side, wide enough that you cannot really fit the whole thing in one photo from the ground. It cost billions of dollars, and the goal was the simplest goal there is: end the traffic, give everyone so much room that the jam finally has nowhere left to sit. You already know how this story is supposed to end: more lanes, more space, less traffic. It is about the most obvious fix in the world. You have got a crowded pipe, so you make the pipe bigger. Anybody would sign off on that. So here is the part that stops you. A few years after all that concrete opened, the drive was not faster, it was slower. The morning crawl got longer, the evening one got worse. The same road, now enormous, and somehow harder to get home on than before anyone touched it. And this is not one unlucky city that fumbled the math. This is what happens almost every time, almost everywhere, so reliably that the people who study roads gave it a name. So before you decide somebody just messed up, hold on to this. The engineers were not fools. The road did exactly what a wider road does. That is the unsettling part. It worked as designed. The design just does something almost nobody sees coming. So where did the extra traffic come from? Because that is the real puzzle. Nobody trucked in a fresh pile of cars the day those lanes opened. The city did not suddenly grow by 1 million people overnight. And yet the road, with all that new room, filled right back up. To see why, you have to picture the drivers who were not on that road yet. Those empty new lanes were a kind of invitation. Somewhere in that city is a person who used to take the train because driving at rush hour was a misery. There is a person who used to drag themselves out the door at 5 in the morning just to beat the worst of it, and who is very tired of doing that. There is a person who decided the trip across town on a Friday night simply was not worth the headache and stayed home. And there is a person who always wanted to live out where the houses are bigger and cheaper, but the commute from that far out scared them off. Every one of them looks at that gleaming, half-empty new road and thinks the same quiet little thought: well, why not now? So the person who took the train drives again. The early riser sleeps in and leaves at 8 like a normal human being. The one who stayed home decides the trip is worth it now. And the builders, who watch this stuff more closely than anyone, start putting up whole new neighborhoods even farther out, because now the commute from way out there looks survivable, so the houses will sell. Each of those choices is completely reasonable. Each one, on its own, is just a person making their life a little easier with the room that opened up. Nobody is doing anything wrong. Nobody is even doing anything surprising. Add them all together though, and they do one thing. They fill the road. Not to some random level, they fill it right back to the exact point where driving starts to feel annoying again. And then, right at that point, the next person who was thinking about it takes one look, decides it is still kind of a pain, and stays on the train after all. That annoyance is not a flaw in the system. It is the thermostat. Traffic settles at whatever level of hassle people are just barely willing to put up with. Make the road worse, and a few people quietly peel off, back to the train, back to the early start, until it is bearable again. Make the road better, and a few more people pour in until it is annoying again. The road keeps drifting back to the same feeling, because that feeling is the thing actually setting the number of cars. The asphalt underneath it barely gets a vote. Now, you might be thinking, sure, but that Texas city was booming. Of course traffic grew, and you would be right that it was growing. So the people who study this did the careful thing. They looked across dozens of cities over decades, and they did the math to hold that growth aside, to separate the city got bigger from the road got wider, and the road, all on its own, still filled. What they found was almost too clean to believe. Add a chunk of new road capacity, and within a few years, you get very nearly that much new driving to fill it. Build roughly 1% more road, get roughly 1% more traffic. They called it, only half joking, a fundamental law, which flips the whole thing on its head. We picture traffic as a fixed amount of water, and a road as the pipe. Too much water for the pipe, so you lay a bigger pipe. Obvious. But the water was never fixed. The road was never holding back some set amount of traffic, waiting patiently to be let through. The road was making the traffic. Every lane you add is not just space for the cars that already exist, It is an invitation to the trips that did not exist yet, the longer commute somebody will now agree to, the errand they would have skipped, the house they will now buy an extra 20 miles out, which becomes a drive they take twice a day for the next 30 years. Build more, and you do not drain the crowd. You call in more of it. It is one of those facts that feels like a typo the first time you meet it. You did the reasonable thing, the generous thing, you gave people more room, and the room itself is what summoned the extra cars. The fix and the problem turn out to be the same move, wearing the same face. And before this turns into a story about villains, it is not one. This is not a video about what your city should build or should have built. People argue about that, loudly, and I'm going to leave that argument to them. Widen the road, do not widen it. Lay down train track, do not. Every one of those choices runs into the same quiet fact sitting underneath. When you make a way of getting around easier, more people use it. That is not a scandal, and it is not a scam. That is just people doing the sensible thing one at a time, until the sensible thing adds up to a traffic jam. And once you can see that shape, it stops being about highways at all. It starts turning up all over your own week. That new lane your taxes helped pay for did not hand you your evening back. The map app that promised a faster way to work just quietly moved everyone onto the faster way until it was the slow way too. The reward for finding the shortcut is that the shortcut fills up, and it reaches a long way past the road. Think about the checkout line. The store opens a second register to clear the crowd, and the shorter line pulls in the people who were not going to bother waiting until both lines are the length the one line used to be. Think about your inbox. You finally claw it down to 0, and that clean, empty inbox seems to whisper to every loose thread in your life, hey, there is room now, and by lunch it is full again. Think about the faster internet you finally sprang for. It just fills with heavier everything. The show that used to stream fine at 720p now insists on 4K, so the picture still stalls to buffer right at the good part. The team that hires 2 more people to ease the crunch and finds the extra hands make room for 2 more projects until the crunch strolls right back in. The bigger fridge that ends up with more food going soft in the back, the closet you cleared, the calendar you swore you would keep light, you make the room, something moves in to take it. None of this is a list of things you are supposed to go fix. It is not a life hack. I am not about to tell you to swear off the fast lane, or to keep your inbox full on purpose, or to move closer to work. You do not have to do a single thing about any of it. It just changes what you are looking at. Because the next time you make a little more room in your life, a faster route, a cleared afternoon, a bigger place, and it fills up quicker than you thought it would, you will not feel like you failed at it. You will recognize the shape. Space, it turns out, has a real talent for writing its own invitations. So think back to those 23 lanes in Texas, all that concrete, all those billions, aimed at a jam that just packed up and moved right back in. It is tempting to call that a failure, but nobody there was foolish. They gave a crowded city more room, which is a genuinely kind thing to want to do. The room just did what room does. You are not on the hook for any of this tonight. There is no new rule to write down, nothing to optimize, no clever move to pull. Just notice, the next time somebody promises that a little more room will finally fix the crowding, on the highway, in your calendar, anywhere at all, that empty space has a quiet talent. It does not tend to stay empty for long.